Hi. Let's start the webinar on the topic bioinformatics. From the word bioinformatics itself, we know that it is something related to biology and information technology. Bioinformatics integrate biological concepts with computer and database methods in order to study biological systems. Once you have a solid understanding on the biological concepts, you will learn on how to apply these concepts with computer and database methods. As the healthcare system is improving day by day, it is related to bioinformatics. As the data increases, we can care a patient with the information we get from the patient, as 99% of information can be used to care a patient more than we are using it nowadays. So the bioinformatics field is the cutting edge of the capacity to the healthcare. As each day healthcare increases, the bioinformatics field give more to the healthcare or contribute more to the healthcare system. As going into the background about the bioinformatics, the modern bioinformatics can be classified into two broad categories, which is the biological science and computer science. And moving into the biological science, there is a major question arises: what is biological science? The biological science is a study of life and living organisms, which includes their physical structure, chemical processes, molecular interactions, physiological mechanisms, development, and evolution. As studying more about the biological science can be summarized in three perspectives, which is on the basis of the cell, on the individual organisms, and the tree of the life. And moving into the cell is the basic structural and functional and biological unit of all non-organisms on this universe or on this earth. And so we can say the cell is the smallest unit of life. And studying about the cell, it is important to know about the central dogma or central paradigm to flow as the genetic information resides in the cell, and the genetic information in the cell flows from DNA to RNA to protein. Protein, which is the building block or which creates us. And when studying more about the DNA, RNA, and protein in the cell, in the perspective of the cell, we need to know more about molecular biology and genomics. Studying more about the cell which is the building block of each and every organisms. So the cell, inside the cell, there are many organelles like mitochondria, cytoplasm, ribosome, endoplasmic reticulum, and many more organelles are inside the cell. And the eukaryotic cell and prokaryotic cell contain it will be same, but eukaryotic cell, we can define eukaryotic cell as having more than one cell is called eukaryote, and prokaryote only have one cell. So inside the cell, there is an organelle called nucleus, inside which the genetic material resides. The nucleus houses the genetic material of the cell, which is the DNA. DNA is normally found as loosely contained structure called chromatin within the nucleus, where it is wound up and associated with variety of histone proteins. When the cell is about to divide, when the cell is which is here, we can see the nucleus, and the DNA is wound up inside it as chromatins. Then when the cell is to divide, the chromatin wound up and it will coil and form chromosome. So when the cell is about to divide, the chromatin coils slightly and condenses to form the chromosome. is the genetic material which decides which is the DNA which decides who we are. The complete set of genetic information in an organism is called the genome. It provides all of the information the organism requires to function. The genome is stored in long molecules of DNA called the chromosome. So we can say that what are we, or what defines us, which is called the DNA or the genetic material. So going more into the DNA is ribonucleic acid. It is a nucleic acid that contains the genetic instructions specifying the biological development of all cellular forms of life, and mostly the viruses. And here we can see the strand of the DNA. Here we can see there is a single strand of DNA, which is a sugar phosphate backbone. From the backbone, there is a 4 nitrogen bases, which is cytosine, guanine, adenine, and thymine, which is connected from the single stranded DNA. And when these 2 single-stranded DNA coils are wound up each other, it becomes a double strand of DNA. DNA is a double-stranded molecule. When 2 single-stranded DNAs having the nitrogen bases wound up and combines together, it is called a double-stranded DNA. And here we can see I have already mentioned there are 4 nitrogen bases for a DNA, which is adenine, guanine, thymine, and cytosine. And here we can see the adenine will always pairs. Adenine will always and only pairs with thymine, and guanine will always and only pairs with cytosine. That means adenine is complementary to thymine and guanine, which is complementary to cytosine. So here we can see a nitrogen monophosphate, which is, here we can see a glycoside bond between the base and the sugar phosphate backbone. And if in the 2' position of the ribose, if it is OH group, we can say it is ribose, and if it is an H, we call it deoxyribose. That means it differentiates ribonucleic acid and deoxyribonucleic acid. And here we can see the sugar phosphate, which is mentioned here, the backbone of the DNA, which is the sugar phosphate, and the nitrogen bases, the 4 bases, which is shown here, the adenine complement to the thymine, and guanine, which is complement to the cytosine. And when the DNA transcribes to RNA, the thymine, in the place of thymine, the uracil is come apart. In the place, the adenine will pair with uracil in RNA, or instead of thymine, uracil will take place in the position in RNA. And going deep into about the RNA, the 3D structure or 3-dimensional structure of DNA was proposed by James Watson and Francis Crick in 1953. And it is the 3-dimensional structure of RNA. They proposed that the 2 sugar phosphate backbone on outside held together by hydrogen bond between the pairs of nitrogenous bases on inside. The 2 sugar phosphate backbone bound to each other in the outside, which is connected to each other by nitrogen bases in the inside. This is a basic structure of the DNA. And moving more, or we could say more about some interesting facts or weird facts about DNA. We could say the length of the DNA. When describing about the length of the DNA, we can say that if we stretch a DNA from Earth, we can go to the sun and we can come back. When the DNA is stretched, it has that much length. And we know that each and every person in this earth is differentiated by its DNA or their genetic material. But it is a fact that 99.9% of each of us, our DNA is similar. 99.9% is similar, which means only 0.1% is different for each of us or between each of the human beings. And about this 100% of DNA, about only 3% is which will code for genes or which will code for protein, which make us. And the other rest of the 97% of the DNA is genetic. Or we don't know the function of 97% of the DNA till now. The human genome, which is very surprisingly has 3 billion base pairs of DNA. The DNA of human genome is made up of 3 billion base pairs. That is 3 billions of adenine, guanine, cytosine, and thymines. Moving to the central dogma, I have already mentioned. The central dogma of molecular biology deals with detailed transfer of genetic information from DNA to RNA to protein in a sequential manner. The central dogma of biology describes just that. It provides the basic framework for how the genetic information flows from a DNA sequence to a protein product inside the cell. The process of genetic information flowing from DNA to RNA to the protein is called the gene expression. DNA sequence information is converted to RNA in a process called transcription, which is the first step of gene expression, where a segment of DNA is copied into RNA polymerase. First, the double-stranded DNA is partially unzipped, and an enzyme called RNA polymerase literally copies genetic nucleotides one by one into an RNA molecule. First, it is unzipped and it is copied to an RNA molecule by RNA polymerase. Like DNA, RNA is also made up of a particular sequence of nucleotides. As already mentioned, the only difference is it is a single strand, and in the case of thymine, here we can see uracil. And very importantly, RNA is small and can easily exist in the nucleus and go to the cytoplasm where protein are made. The sequence encoded in the RNA molecule is decoded and converted to amino acid sequence, which is here the amino acid sequence called the translation. The RNA is encoded or decoded to protein and produce amino acid sequences, and this is called translation. And DNA is very stable, where the RNA is very unstable inside the cell. And before the process of central dogma, there happens the replication of DNA, where the DNA forms a copy of itself. The double-stranded DNA which unwinds, and from each of these strands, another strand is produced using the DNA polymerase. When each nucleotides or base pairs are added, and the same as the first DNA, a second DNA is formed, or a replicate of a first DNA is formed. And after the replication, the translation or transcription process happens. And here we can see the double-stranded RNA wounds up, or it will unzip, and it will unzip first, and an RNA molecule is formed using the RNA polymerase. From this DNA to RNA, the transcription happens, and from RNA to mRNA, which is a transcript, which is the copy of DNA, which is the RNA or mRNA or a messenger RNA, which will code to, or which will code for amino acid sequences, which is from RNA to protein, which is called translation. And this is the basic central dogma of molecular biology. Moving or studying more about transcription, as mentioned, transcription. Hello. Okay, studying more about the transcription. Transcription is the transfer of DNA to RNA, which is the encoding of DNA to RNA. And transcription, the process through which DNA sequence is enzymatically copied by RNA polymerase to produce a complementary RNA. The transfer of genetic information from DNA to RNA. Here we can see a picture of transcription, a DNA molecule which is unwound or unzipped, and a mRNA molecule is formed, or an RNA, single strand of RNA is formed from this double strand of RNA. Thus, transcription is a process by which the information contained in a section of DNA is replicated in the form of a newly assembled piece of messenger RNA. Enzymes facilitating the process include RNA polymerase and many transcription factors. In eukaryotic cell, the primary transcript is a precursor RNA, which is a precursor RNA, and this precursor RNA must be processed for translation to proceed. Processing includes the addition of pike cap, end, and poly A type followed by splicing, where the splicing makes it variety, which make varieties of proteins from a same DNA. Same double-stranded DNA, splicing makes varieties of protein from this same double-stranded DNA. The product of the entire protein is the mature mRNA. Here, after all these processes, we get a mature mRNA or messenger RNA from here. And this messenger RNA, which will be translated to protein. Before going into the session, translation, we need to know what is a genetic code. Here is studied, there are many nucleotides, and here the RNA contains a single strand and many nucleotide bases. And here the genetic code is a set of rules that marks DNA sequence to protein in the living cell and is employed in the process of protein synthesis. Nearly all living things uses the same genetic code called the standard genetic code, and although a few organisms uses minor variations of the standard code. As from this code, a codon is simply a triplet. Here we can see a single strand of RNA and nucleotides. Here, the first three nucleotides called the codon 1. The first triplet called the codon 1, which will code for an amino acid. And the second triplet, which is the codon 2, which will code for another amino acid. And the third triplet, which will code for another amino acid, and so on. So, by all these adenine, guanine, thymine, adenine, guanine, uracil, and cytosine will code for 64 different codons, where 61 specifically code for amino acid, and while the other 3 will help in starting and stopping the translation process. And moving to the part translation, from DNA triplet, it forms RNA triplet, which we can classify this into many codons, which is almost 64 codons, which will code for amino acid. And there are only 20 standard amino acids which forms to protein. Here are some RNA codons that code for amino acid, and which are alanine, leucine, lysine, methamine, asparagine, etc. Where here alanine, the first amino acid, GCU GCC, which is guanine cytosine uracil, guanine cytosine cytosine, guanine cytosine adenine, and guanine cytosine guanine. These 4 codons which code for alanine amino acid. These 4 codons will only code for alanine. And here these 6 codons will only code for leucine and likewise. And there are the other 5 amino acids, other 5 codons which helps in starting and stopping the process of translation. Whenever an RNA polymerase or a translation factor C AUG in the mRNA, it will start the process of translation, and whenever it will see a nucleotide having UAG, it will stop the process of translation or the process of protein production. And here we can see the process of translation. The process of translation can be divided into stages of initiation, elongation, and termination. Initiation involved and these 3 other proteins called initiation factor to help mRNA bind to the smaller subunit of ribosomes. This is to help in bounding to the smaller subunit of the ribosome. Here the smaller subunit and here is the larger subunit. The mRNA will come and bind to the smaller subunit of the ribosome, and it is bound to the correct location using the initiation codon, as I have already stored a start codon. When the ribosome found a start codon, it will come and bind to the start codon, and the process of translation starts. The next phase is the elongation or adding other amino acids to the building polypeptide chain. Here there is a ribosome, and the mRNA comes and binds to the ribosome, and a transfer RNA which will carry a amino acid at its one end and having an anticodon which will complement to the codons in the mRNA. Here there is a codon, and here is in transfer RNA there is an anticodon. The anticodon will combine to the codon, and an amino acid enters here, and it will move, and as each transfer RNA comes and binds to the mRNA, the length of the amino acid chain increases. The elongation can be combined in about 1/20 seconds. So a protein of 400 units, which means a protein having 400 amino acid, a single amino acids could be assembled in about 20 seconds. It is suggested that most of this time is used sampling the amino acid carrying tRNAs or transfer RNAs in the cytosol to find ones from which there is a codon-anticodon match, which is the codon-anticodon match. To find the most of the time in the cell, in the process of translation, it spends the time to find the codon-anticodon match to code for a specific amino acid. The translation process incorporates 20 amino acid, and with this 20 amino acid, the entire or the whole body of ours is made. Now, all proteins in this world is made up of this 20 amino acid. And moving after the translation, we get a long chain of amino acid. We get a long chain of amino acid, and here the transcription and translation are explained. And first the DNA is replicated, and DNA form a replicate of itself, and this will be transcribed to an RNA, which is a messenger RNA, and this messenger RNA will be translated to protein. Here we will see more about the structure of protein. First, we see after the translation, we will get a long strand of DNA, long strand of amino acid. This amino acid, which is a long strand, which is a primary structure of protein. And with this primary structure, with a long stretch of sequence, which will fold to form the secondary structure, which will fold to alpha helix and beta sheets to form the secondary structure of the amino acid, which is the second stage. And then these secondary structure having alpha helix and beta sheet will again fold and twist and fold to form the tertiary structure of the amino acid, which is some more congested structure. The tertiary structure refers to the polypeptide, which continues folding beyond the formation of the secondary structure. After the tertiary structure, many more tertiary structure comes together to form a quaternary structure. Here we can see the structure of hemoglobin. Here we can see there are 4 subunits. The tertiary structure, four tertiary structure combines to form a quaternary structure or 4th stage of the protein. And each of these proteins have their own functions. The mRNA does not contain any information for we have already seen the mRNA is translated to protein. The mRNA which does not contain any information for specifying the nature of a mature protein. The nascent polypeptide chain released from the ribosome commonly requires the additional processing before the final product emerges. And the structure are essential information about the protein function after they are translated. And these proteins, which help us in each and every part of our life, this protein which helps us to walk, us to jump, or us to breathe, and everything we do, which is with the help of this protein. And so this part, the structure of protein or the protein, is very important to know more about. And moving after studying the cell, moving into the organism, from the cell we can focus on individual organisms, which represent the second perspective of the field. In the biological system, the second perspective is the organism, the individual organism, the changes that happen in an individual. And each organism changes across different stages of development and across different regions of the body. For example, the gene or the fat dynamically regulate across the time and regions and its response to the physiological state. An individual organism can be studied. An individual organism can be studied in the perspective of the time of its development, regions of the body, and physiological or pathological states. And with these perspectives, an organism is studied. And each organism changes across different stages of development and across different stages of the body. So, in the development, gene is an important factor and gene expression is another important factor. As we have already seen, genomics, which is when the DNA to the protein, the genomics is a study of the entire genome in a human body or in a living organism. So, from gene to the functional genomics, the study of what these genes do in our body or in a living organism, which comes under the perspective of organism. And also the proteomics, which already told, proteomics, which is a study of proteins, which is a structure and function of protein. And what these proteins do in a living organism also comes under the perspective of protein. So moving into what is a gene, as I already mentioned, in a chromosome, the DNA is tightly bound in a chromosome. And when the DNA is stretched out, there is a small stretch of this long DNA. There are small stretches of this DNA which encode for a protein, which is the gene. And in our body, there are almost 27,000 genes. Genes make up protein. That make up nearly all we are: the muscle, the hair, the eye. So all what we are, which describes which describes the protein. Almost everything that happens in our body happens because of the protein, like walking, digestion, fighting disease. For example, here we can see the eye color, which is a gene. The eye color, someone has brown eye color, someone has blue eye color, and someone has black eye color. And this is because of the gene present in each individual, which will be different. And the definition of gene, what is a gene? And genes, which is a segment of DNA. In a long segment, in a long stretch of DNA, a gene is a small segment of the DNA, and each gene contains information about a certain trait or a certain characteristics of a living organism, like the eye color. Genes are transcribed and translated by the cell to make protein. These genes are transcribed, the genes in the DNA are transcribed, which is a genetic information, which is transcribed into RNA, ribonucleic acid, and which is translated to protein, which we can see in our living organism in a phenotype, which we can see the protein create a visible phenotype. Phenotype means what we can see, like the blue eye color or green eye color or a brown or black eye color, which we can see the gene expression of these proteins. The gene which give eye color, which we can see as a phenotype characteristics, which will give us the eye color. The one gene might code for eye color, and the gene used by the cell to make the protein which create the green pigment, the protein which will create the green pigment in our eyes to give a green color to our eyes. And we have already told in 100% of the DNA strand, only 3% is useful or which will code for a protein. So in a long stretch of DNA, there are many exons and introns. An exon which contain the information to code for the protein, and introns are some gen parts of the DNA, and these introns will be the most part of the 97% of the DNA will be introns, and only 3% of the DNA will be exons. And this DNA will be transcribed to RNA, and the RNA which will be spliced, which means the introns, which is the gen part of the DNA, the introns will be cut apart, and the exon will be joined together, called splicing, and which is called the mRNA. The exons will be joined together through the process called splicing, which will form the mRNA, as already told. And this mRNA which will code for amino acid chain. Here you can see a primary structure, amino acid chain, and through many folds and twists in this primary structure, it will form a quaternary or tertiary structure, which is a functional protein. As here we can see the protein structure. A primary structure which forms helix and turns and twists, helix and alpha helix and beta sheets to form a tertiary structure to a quaternary structure. And the main thing here we need to study is that a protein structure which will say the protein function. If we know the structure of a protein, we can predict the function of the protein. And here we can see this is a protein. If assume that this is a protein, and here we can see an active site. Active site is something which an enzyme. For example, if we take a drug, if we need a painkiller like paracetamol, we will take a drug, and this drug will go and bind to some protein which is the reason for the headache, and the drug which will go and bind to the protein which is a reason for the which is a reason for the disease, for example headache, the drug will go and bind to some active site of this protein, and that is an active site. And here we can see that if the shape or structure of a protein slightly changes, or here we can see it changes, and the protein doesn't have any activity because it doesn't have an active site where the drug can go and bind. Thus, for each and every protein, there will be some activities and some functions and functions. So it will be in one stage, or it will be in one particular shape. It has an activity, and if it change it, if the shape of that particular protein will change, it will lose its activity, or sometimes it will be hyperactive or more active. Like in cancer cells, the protein will be active more, and it will lead to some diseases. So it's a particular structure of a protein defines its function, and if changed from that structure, it will change, it will cause some diseases, or it will cause the protein to degrade, or it will cause the body dysfunction. And moving as we studied about the functional genomics and proteomics and importance of proteomics. And moving into the tree of life. And at the last, and this is the third perspective of the field of biological science. At the largest scale is the tree of the life. And there are many millions of species alive today, and they can be grouped into three major branches. In this whole universe, the whole living organisms on this universe can be classified into three branches, which is bacteria, archaea, and eukarya. In the plants, animals, fungi, etc., came under the tree eukaryote, under the branch eukaryote, and the largest group is the bacteria. And there are many millions of species alive today, and these are grouped into these three categories. And the genome of all these categories are combined. The genome of animals and plants are combined. Between the animals are combined to study about the ancestors. And this is called comparative genomics, to compare about the genomes of each and every living organisms on this earth, called the comparative genomics. And this will lead to the phylogenetic relationship, which is the relationship to our ancestors, from where to the process of evolution, how we are created. As we know, we are created from monkeys, and the evolutionary relationship to us with the monkeys, and like which is called the phylogenetic relationship, the relationship of us with our parents and with our grandparents and to their parents, and this is called a phylogenetic relationship. And through the DNA sequence analysis, we learn how the chromosome evolved and formed throughout the process of chromosomal duplication, deletion, or rearrangement, and through the whole genome duplication. And each of these are formed through the process of DNA deletion, duplication, or mutation, or rearrangement of these DNAs, which will cause a genetic change in each of these organisms. And moving into bioinformatics milestone, or we can say the history of bioinformatics. Is going to get historical and interesting as we are into the history of the bioinformatics. Before it was coined in 1991, scientists used to call it computational biology. Before the term bioinformatics was coined, the scientists used to call it the computational biology, which basically explained the use of computer technologies to solve biological problems. Since bioinformatics is now defined with a loose definition, it always has the components of mathematics, statistics, and computing methods to process the biological databases. The history. to the history, we can see that the Pauling and Corey in 1951 proposed the structure of alpha helix. The structure of alpha helix, which is a DNA alpha helix. And meanwhile, the Watson Crick proposed the double helix model of DNA, which is by using the X-ray crystallography method. And Frederick Sanger announced the first analyzed protein sequence from bovine insulin. The first protein sequence was announced by Frederick Sanger, which is the bovine insulin. And a new computer, and next to the Margaret A. Hope, the new computer methods to analyze and compare a large number of protein sequences of different organisms were needed because handling many amino acid sequences manually was impractical. This led to completing the first protein information resource, and the Margaret A. group successfully organized the protein sequence into distinct groups and subgroups based on the sequence similarity. And the first database was created by her, which is the protein sequence database. And she also started the Atlas of Protein Sequence and Structure, as she created the first ever database, which is a protein sequence database, and thus the bioinformatics field was started. And so the Margaret A. Hope, she is called the mother of bioinformatics. And here we can see this is how the cloning was performed. This is how the cloning was performed back then. That led Carey Mullis to describe about the polymerized chain reaction. And the first complete gene sequence for bacteriophage FX174 stain was published, and the sequence has 9 proteins. And that was by Frederick Sanger. In 1981, IBM introduced a personal computer, was developed and introduced, which greatly contribute to the development of GenBank database, and NCBI, National Center for Biotechnology Information, was also created, which was after the creation of personal computer. After the personal computer, the IBM have opened up opportunity for other developers to create more tools for science. For example, NCBI and GenBank. And also the Perl programming language, which is very important computer language for bioinformatics. Many more different codes and programs are codes by the programming language Perl. Besides this, nowadays we use Python programming language. And here, these are many more after the personal computer was developed. Many more applications like SwissPort database, NCBI, FAST-P algorithm was published, and many more development in the field of bioinformatics and databases. And here is Dr. Craig Venter, a scientist who sequenced his own genome as part of a Human Genome Project, who founded the Institute of Genomic Research, and also known as Craig Venter Institute. And he was the first who sequenced his genome, sequenced a human genome, his own genome, as a part of Human Genome Project. And in 1990, BLAST program which is the basic local algorithm sequence tool program, was implemented after FASTA algorithm for sequence comparison was published. It was in the era that the word bioinformatics was coined during this era. And one of the most important histories of the mankind is the completion of the Human Genome Project. The project alone has consumed billions of dollars in order to publish a draft of human genome in 2021. When it started in 1991 and it ends in 2013, and it's almost take 13 years to completely sequence a genome or a single human genome. Takes almost 13 years. And the purpose of this project was mainly to identify human genes, the number of genes in the human, and the function. And this is very important for the healthcare industry and even and until now. And after the Human Genome Project, the bioinformatics field or the healthcare sector increased, or the healthcare sector, the databases are increased tremendously. And this is the history of bioinformatics. And from the history, we entered in the Human Genome Project, which is the 2003, published in 2003. After the Human Genome Project, the healthcare sector and bioinformatics increased tremendously. And here we see the Human Genome Project, which sequenced the whole genome or complete genome of a human body. And here we see the sequencing, the word sequencing, and we need to know what is sequencing. The sequencing means the process of determining the sequence of nucleotide. As we studied, there are 4 nucleotide bases for a DNA, which is adenine, thymine, cytosine, and guanine in a piece of DNA. In a DNA, these 4 nucleotides was determined, which is called the sequencing. And the first sequencing was coined by the Frederick Sanger, and so-called the Sanger sequencing was the first method. And now, as technology increases, shotgun sequencing, next generation sequencing came into picture. And here we can see there is a large stretch of DNA, which we can consider here as a complete genome of a human. And here we know it is a large stretch of DNA, and we don't know where these nucleotides are. Where we don't know where the ATGCs are in this large stretch of DNA. We need to find it out where these nucleotides are in, where the A are there, where the T are there, where the G and C are there. We need to find it out. So we will fragment this long stretch of DNA into small pieces, and we will overlap them. We will sequence them in an overlap in this manner, which will overlap to each other, and thus we can find, and we will sequence each of this small stretch of DNA, and we can find where the G, C, T, or A are inside this small stretch of DNA. And by the process of overlapping, the whole large stretch of DNA can be found out, and which is assembled into a large stretch of DNA. And with an unknown DNA we can sequence it to a known sequence of DNA, which is called the sequencing. And moving into the Human Genome Project after the sequencing, and one of the greatest feats of exploration of the history, which is the Human Genome Project, and which begins in October 1, 1919 and completed in April 2003, took almost 13 years. The international research effort to determine the DNA sequence of an entire human genome, and that was the aim of Human Genome Project, gave the ability for the first time to read nature's complete genetic blueprint for building a human being. And this was more surprising that we can build a human genome or a human by knowing what is inside this DNA, or what is this genetic code, or what is this human genome, and that is genetic blueprint for building the human being. Into the background of the Human Genome Project, the human body has almost 100 billion cells. As I mentioned, 3 billion 3 billion base pairs. Inside each of these cells is a nucleus that contains a genome, that is a 46 female chromosome, which govern the female development. As already mentioned, Frederick Sanger, who sequenced the first genome, which is after bacteriophage, and after Frederick Sanger sequenced the sequence of a bacteriophage, many more sequencing happens as of Drosophila, Arabidopsis thaliana, and the mouse genome were also sequenced. And after this, the concept of human genome sequencing was gained, and as most complex organism, as the most complex organism on this earth is a human, and it has, before starting the Human Genome Project, it is expected that the human genome has 1 lakh genes. And the US government project, the project was coordinated by the US government, and it was proposed in 1988, and about 3% of the budget was given to this project. And during the early years of the project, Wellcome Trust also joined as a main partner. And the Wellcome Trust which contributed a lot to this genome project. And many more countries contributed significantly for this project. And the main goal of the Human Genome Project was to identify the genes in the human DNA, or to sequence the whole genome of a human and determine the sequence of the chemical nucleotide bases make up the human genome, and store this information, and the whole information that is got from sequencing of all of the genome was stored into a database. And to develop faster and more efficient sequencing technology, the first project take almost 13 years. They need to produce more sequencing technologies which can take less time for sequencing the whole genome of the body. Develop tools for data analysis, and the sequenced genome must be analyzed. Then only it will turn into information, and data analysis tools are needed, because this is a very huge or large data, and data analysis is need to be performed on this data to get useful information. And after the HGP or Human Genome Project, many ethical, legal, and social issues arises due to this project. And here we see who genome, and we see that was the genome of Dr. Craig Venter, and the genome of the Craig Venter was sequenced, and the donor identified where to protect that neither donor nor scientist. He sequenced the first genome, and after that, when the HGP starts, they decided that not the donor of the genome or the scientist know whose genome was taken for the sequencing. And the sequence is taken and sequenced. They are fragmented into different fragments or sequences, and many clones of these DNA are formed into libraries. Many clones of libraries are formed. And two factors that made this project a success was the genetic engineering techniques, with which it possible to isolate and clone any segment of the DNA. Genetic engineering technique, where we can sequence a DNA and produces many clones or many duplicates of these small stretch of DNA, which is a genetic engineering technique which helps a lot in Human Genome Project, and availability of a simple, fast, and automated technologies determining the DNA sequencing here, which is a Sanger sequencing used in the project. And as we already seen, before the Human Genome Project, it is expected that about 1 lakh gene will be present in a human body. But after this project, it is found that the human genome contains 3 billion chemical nucleotides, which is the ATGC sequence will be 3 billion chemical nucleotide bases, which contains the human genome. The average gene contains 300 bases. I have already mentioned a gene is a small structure of DNA, and a small structure of this DNA this gene contains almost 3,000 bases, but the size varies greatly. There will be 2,500 length of the gene, or 4,000 bases gene, and etc. The length varies greatly with large non-human gene. The largest non-human gene was 2.4 million bases. Will have 2.4 million bases. The total number of genes is estimated. It's only 30,000 and much lower. And almost 99, and I have already mentioned, all of these human beings is differentiated by its genetic material, but 99.9% of each of these human beings are similar, and only 0.1% is different for each individual. And the number around same as mice, and the human genome will be same as mice. Well, it is so surprising that the human genome, the entire human genome, is almost same as the entire genome of a mice, and it is 3 times that of a fly and only 5 times that of a bacteria. That is so much surprising that the whole human genome is only 5 times that of a bacteria, and the function are unknown. 50% of the gene till now are. The functions of the 50% of the gene till now are unknown. And after the Human Genome Project, mainly the field of bioinformatics developed a lot, and it helps in improving the medicine, improving diagnosis of disease, because if we know the genetic information of a female, we can know what happens, what is the cause of disease for that female, and thus the medicine has improved a lot, the microbial research has improved a lot, and DNA forensic, like identifying potential suspect of a crime scenes by differentiating among each person. It helps differentiating, or it helps us identifying the suspect of a crime, like the DNA forensics was developed. And in agriculture also, the disease caused genes were identified, and that was removed, and it helps more in agriculture field. And evolution and female migration, study migration of the different, the comparison of different genome from different. If we compare the African genome, we will take a human from African and genome that, and from Asia we will sequence the genome of that person, and we can study the evolution and human migration by these genome sequencing, and we can study the heritable mutations from the parents, that the diseases that can be transmitted to us from the parents or grandparents can be studied through this project. By studying the gene of our parents and our grandparents, the possible disease that can be affected to us can also be studied. Thus, the code for human genome was unraveled. And moving into the data explosion, after the Human Genome Project, the data increases tremendously, as there is a saying that we are swimming in a rapidly rising sea of data. How do we keep drowning? And the answer is that the bioinformatics which help us in this, and the genome researchers make it possible to look at biological phenomena on the scale not previously possible. All genes in the genome, all transcripts in the cell, all metabolic processes in the tissue, all these are studied. All genes in the genome are sequenced, or the whole genome is sequenced. That is the data. As it is a human genome, which is almost many GBs of data, which will be many GBs of data, and all the transcript of the cell, which is the all RNAs in a cell, is sequenced, which will be a large amount of data. All the metabolic processes, all the pathway inside our body, inside a tissue are studied, and that is a vast amount of data. And all these data are increasing tremendously after this Human Genome Project, and we need to do something to study about this data, because manually studying these data are very impossible. And one feature that all these approaches having shares a common thing, which is the production of massive quantity of data. And during that time, during early 21 or early 20s or late 20s, they don't know, or the scientists, they don't know what to do with this vast amount of data and how to manually analyze this huge amount of data. And the fast-growing biological research is produced as each and every day the biological researches grows as the disease and the newly finding diseases grows, and many genomes are found, novel genomes are found, many novel viruses are found each and every day, like coronavirus. Many strains of that was developed, and many gene expressions are studied, many protein structure, and many novel proteins are studied. The whole from the whole bacteria, algae, and eukaryote, the whole living system, or the data are increasing day by day, and we need to do something. And there comes the field of bioinformatics, to use these data, to analyze these data with the help of computers. And after the database was created, which is the GenTime, the NCBI, the users of this data increases day by day. As we can see, from 89 to 2013, there is a vast growth in the users, the users of this databases. And it is in 2013. In 2020, it will be unimaginable, because the whole biological field is using the bioinformatics or the database to study about what they are producing through their researches. And moving into some of the major definitions about the bioinformatics, the National Institute of Health define bioinformatics as research, development, or application of computational tools and approaches for expanding the use of biological, medical, behavioral health data, including those to acquire, store, organize, analyze, or visualize such data, which is a research developmental field, the application of computational tools, which helps to expand the biological, medical field to analyze and visualize the data which we get from the biological field. And another definition is proposed by National Human Genome Research Institute, which is biology is a branch of bioinformatics is a branch of biology that is concerned with acquisition, storage, display, and analysis of information found in the nucleic acid and protein sequence data. And also, Frank, a great scientist, proposed bioinformatics as a mathematics, statistics, and statistical and computing method that aim to solve biological problems using DNA and amino acid information. And as we see, bioinformatics, which is an interdisciplinary field, which include all those fields like all sciences like statistics, mathematics, biology, medicine, databases, text mining, web applications, algorithm, and programming. All these fields together encompasses the field of bioinformatics. The mathematics is applied to study, the statistics is applied to study the data, and biology and medicines is the main part. And with these data from the biology and medicine and healthcare, we will make some databases, we will make some web applications or softwares or programming or algorithm to develop are developed to analyze these data from the biological field. So these all so these all fields and together called the bioinformatics, which is called the interdispensary field, which encompasses all these fields, which is the bioinformatics. And if we need to understand more about the field of bioinformatics, we need to understand all these fields. Then only we can go deep into the field of bioinformatics. And understanding about the system is a major factor, which is it is about the cell, the signaling network inside the tissue, which is about the protein, the RNA, the DNA, the biomolecules inside living organism, and also the environmental factors, the studies from the clinicians, clinical studies, and all encompasses the organism altogether. Understanding of all of these together, only we can study the field of bioinformatics, or only we can go deep into the bioinformatics field, only studying these all fields.